lied about having a lipoma to avoid awkward questions, then exposed the Asker's affair partner when pressed for more. Now everyone's upset, but I don't feel guilty. I, 36M, had a lipoma on my head for about 15 years. I always wished it wasn't there. It didn't hurt, but it caused problems. For example, I was on a fishing trip. One of the guys noticed it, thought it was a bump. He asked how I got it. I didn't know. I don't think anything caused it to be there. It just grew. He wouldn't shut up about it. In the end, I told him I was swimming and hit the side of the pool. He laughed, thinking that was funny. Told my father I'd managed to make him laugh, then left it. I was just relieved that he'd finally shut up about it. He wouldn't accept the truth that it was just there, so I told him that to get him to shut up. Hey, if somebody has a lump on their head, they'd probably prefer if people either didn't notice it or pretend they didn't. Just like a lazy eye, you wouldn't go up to somebody, hey, what happened to your eye? Would you? It kept growing over the years. It had been pretty well covered by my hair, but it was starting to show. My sister noticed it shortly before it was removed, saying she always knew it was there, but it was never that visible until now. My parents are split up. I live with my father. When I was 35 one day, my mother came into my office while I was playing Due 2 and said that for my 36th birthday, she was wanting to pay to have the lipoma removed. I agreed to this. Had it removed, the doctor did a good job, cut it out, stitched it up, and now the scarring is pretty much gone. So recently, my father's friend was visiting with her daughter. Her daughter, 22 Nem, has discovered a lump on their head. They were talking about it when I came in, and their mother said, "Don't worry, spare_dimension_2768 has a lump on his head. Don't you?" Now, for some context, the woman who was visiting is known as the town's biggest gossip. And also there are rumors about her cheating on her husband. There was a guy who was helping her with a project. We'll call him Gary, and another guy who can only be described as the village idiot. We'll call him Neil. Also, I'd never brought it up to her. There are 6 people who I've talked about it with. The guy on the fishing trip, although I didn't want to then, my parents, my sister, and my best friend just before I got it removed. He actually said he'd never noticed it. So I replied, "No, I don't." They said they'd seen it, so I leaned my head forward to let them check, and lo and behold, there was no lipoma. "You had one, I saw it." I replied, "Are you taking something that affects your brain? There's nothing on my head and never was. Are you thinking of someone else?" They continued to insist it was me. I told them, "Look, let's imagine if hypothetically somebody, not me because you have checked my head and found nothing, somebody had a lump on their head. I imagine that this hypothetical person might be sensitive about this lump. They'd hope people wouldn't notice it, and if they did, I imagine they'd wish that people would pretend they hadn't. Now imagine some idiot kept probing them about it. They might not like that. Let's imagine that the idiot was standing in a glass house. I imagine that this hypothetical person might warn them to stop throwing stones. She told me she'd seen a lump on my head. She'd had her warning to stop throwing stones from her glass house, so I asked, "How was Neil in bed?" She got annoyed and denied that being true, so I asked, "How does he compare to Gary?" She continued to deny, so I told her, "Well, like most of town's name, I have heard the rumors. If you ever want to talk about an imaginary lump on my head that clearly isn't there again, I'll want to talk about those rumors of you and Neil and Gary." My father told me I'd been rude to his guests. I said that the lipoma had affected my self-esteem for years, and now I just want to go on as if it was never there.
Next story. Fiance was mean to my friend, but I didn't defend her. Now she's mad and wants an apology. Should I have said something? I, 26M, have been engaged to my fiance, Zyra, 26F, for 6 months now. We were friends in high school and only started dating when we were around 22. We were close in high school. We were in the same friend group, but drifted apart and reconnected in uni, so it's safe to say I do know her really well. She's a kind person most of the time. However, she can have a bit of a mean streak. I've witnessed it at times, and she can make people cry. So my friend group mostly consists of gamers. I don't hang out with them in person that much because I'm not very social and prefer spending time with my fiancé. Even during calls, I'm mostly muted or don't talk, but I do enjoy their company. I guess I'm just shy. My friends know I have a fiancé, and they invited her out with us last night. There are girls in our friend group, like 2 of them, and this other girl in our group who can be a bit of a pick-me girl. I'll call her Emma. She gets along well with the rest of us, but sometimes she can be a bit annoying. So last night we all went out to dinner, and the other 2 girls and my girl were getting along really well. They really hit it off until Emma joined us later in the evening. She started making passive-aggressive backhanded comments to Zyra, who initially just rolled her eyes and laughed, but I told Emma to stop because I didn't want the night to end with someone crying. She took this as a joke, but stopped messing with Zyra for a while, and then she started up again. I think she was trying to make my fiancé insecure or jealous or something, but Emma kept saying how close we are because we game. Zyra knows I'm not close with her, because every time I play with them, she is either in my lap or right next to me watching me play. Emma told Zyra not to worry about her because she wasn't going to take me away from her. Zyra smiled at her, and I knew the night was over. She looked Emma up and down and said, "You, take him from me, good luck." Emma tried defending herself and brushing it off as a joke, but Zaira just kind of let loose, I guess. She called Emma a pathetic excuse of a woman and asked if she needs male validation that desperately, or if she's actually deluded enough to think Emma, is more important than her, Zaira, and Sarah, in my life among other things. I'm not going to lie, I do kind of think it's hot when she gets like this. So I just sat by and watched, and Emma started crying, and we left after she said thank you to the rest of my friends. The girls in my group have been messaging me and saying I should have stopped Zaira and maybe not have let her be so rude, and Emma has gone radio silent. My other friends think Zaira is justified, and I do too, but did she take it too far, and should I have stopped her? Next story.
So refusing to pay my mom's rent after my dad died, even though she insists I should be helping her financially. Now she's furious, telling the entire family that I'm selfish and don't care about her struggles. I've been fully estranged from my adoptive parents for about 15 years with very minimal communication and interactions over that time. My dad was an absent parent since he lost his good job and became a chain-smoking alcoholic when I was around 7. I'm 43 now, so it's been a while. We grew up poor, had to live in a motel, and crash at a friend's house one summer since we got kicked out of our rental. I always had a roof over my head and food, but that was about it. It helped me become very independent, self-sufficient, and I learned how not to be a dad. I have my own family now with 4 boys and a good career. My parents only met our oldest son when he was 18 months and never met any of our other boys. My dad never cared about me or his grandsons. When we still lived closer to my parents, my mom wished to be involved, and I offered to drive and pick her up so she could see her grandkids. But she always said no because she didn't want to deal with more verbal and mental abuse from my dad. After trying for so long to have some kind of relationship, I gave up since they didn't try or do anything. To give you a little more context, my dad also said at our wedding reception that our marriage wouldn't stick past. We've been married 19 years now. He was a real a-hole and treated everyone like crap. I found out that he borrowed money from almost everyone in our family and never paid it back, and also spent all of my money that I was given for gifts and saved when I got it. He was a pitiful, selfish man that nobody was sad or grieved when he passed. Even my mom didn't cry much because she was tired of his stuff. To get to the real story now, I had booked a plane ticket to go say goodbye to my dad and help my mom clean up the house and get some things in order. My dad died 6 days before my flight, and I wasn't sad and kind of relieved I didn't see him one more time since my mom said he was being rude and mean to everyone. I was there for 3 days and helped my mom clean out about half of the old crap that was in the house other than her stuff that she needed to go through before she moves. To help a little more, I paid a month of her utilities, paid a few outstanding medical bills, paid for a year of a new cell phone for her, changed her car insurance to save a bunch of money, gave her some cash. We made the donation to the church at the sad funeral mass of just her and I. Again, I say nobody was sad. There's still not a single comment on his obituary. I also took her to the store and bought her some basic necessities. All in all, between my travel costs and how much I covered for her, I spent about $1,500. Not a ton of money, but definitely not chump change. My best way to help her was to help her with some energy and muscle to clean out a bunch of crap that would have taken her forever. Before leaving, I told my mom multiple times I cannot support you and can't be asked for money all the time. I thought I did enough to give her a buffer for a little bit. Imagine my shock when just over a week after I get home, she calls me and says, "I need a favor. Can you pay my rent this month? It's only $950. I replied, "What did I tell you last week? I can't support you and pay your bills all the time." I found out that my cousin, who has been helping my mom, they are only 6 years apart in age and have been like sisters, told her to ask me because my mom donated my dad's body for research, so we didn't have to pay for his cremation that I said I would have paid for. My cousin assumed that since I have a decent job and didn't have to pay for the cremation that I would pay for the rent, even though I already paid for those other bills, and said that was it. Everyone I have talked to has said that it was crazy that they asked me so quickly for more money after all the other things I did for a mom I have been estranged from for 15 years, hasn't been involved in her grandkids' life or my life as their only child.